Right. Yasher koach for the sponsors of this series for the whole year is the memory of Elchanan Ephraim ben Avraham. Today's shir we have two dedications as well. It should be a tremendous chus. Rochelle Turetsky, Refuah Shlema Rivka Leah Bat Devorah Shoshana Rezel, among Shar OUisrael, and by my father, in memory of his aunt Rivka Bat Avraham, and should be Leilui Nishmata as well. Okay, my friends, let's learn. Today's shir, I will say, is a shir with really, I can't call it simplistic because nothing is simple. One real yesod, and in simplicity comes depth and comes real understanding. So let's learn. Every single pasuk in Chumash has a lesson for our lives. Whether we understand it or not, that's our challenge. So even things that seem to be totally irrelevant to our lives are so totally relevant. And here's the example. Parshat Mishpatim deals with the laws of Nezikin, the laws of damages. Okay, so a lot of those laws of damages are very relevant to our lives. You borrow something from somebody and you damage it. What is your obligation? Someone asks you to watch something and it gets stolen. What's your obligation? These are day in, day out halachas. Look at the following halacha in Pasuk Lamed Zayin. If a man shall steal an ox, I don't know if women can hold an ox, but that's irrelevant, right? If a man steals an ox or a sheep or a goat and slaughter it or sell it, he shall pay 5 cattle in place of the ox and 4 sheep in place of the sheep. Now, why is there a difference between the ox and the sheep? So Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai, this is Rashi, tells us very famous, I'm in the bracket in 2, the Torah reduced the payment for a sheep because a thief suffered the embarrassment of carrying it on his shoulders and he made his escape. If the embarrassment of even a compassionless thief evokes God's pity, how much more so should we be concerned with the feelings of innocent people? And Rashi brings a second interpretation, Rabbi Meir, that the ox is more serious because it causes the owner a greater loss of work. We have one question for today, my friends. It's a simple question. And that question is the following. Parshat Mishpatim, source 3, deals with laws. La'anish ganav al gnevato. You punish a thief for his stealing. Halo. Ve'ech nichnas kan cheshbon shel kavod habrios. If we're dealing with judgment here, where is there even a place to have in the consideration the idea of poor thief, he had the embarrassment. And the Harasterich goes on and asks, and if the thief has to schlep a ladder in public, do we say, oh, give out. It must have been so hard for you to schlep the ladder to do your job. I'm going to take off because you schlepped the ladder. I mean, there's no end to this. How do we understand that if we're dealing with Mishpatim, that suddenly we have the kavod habrios element here? That's our question for today, and obviously the implications of what we're supposed to learn for this for our lives. So first and foremost, as the Das Torah points out in source 4, the Gemara tells us, "Hamain debai lemahave chasida l'kayi mile dinaziki." One who wants to be a chassid. Now we make a mistake that we think a chassid is somebody with a fur hat and payas. That's not. That may be what we call a chassid. A chassid in Talmudic thought is somebody who goes, thank you, lifnim mishirat hadin, above and beyond the regular law. If you want to learn how to be a chassid, aka being a mensch, learn the laws of Nezikin. That's what the Gemara says. Because the laws of Nezikin, the laws of damages, aren't just about technical damages. They're about ben adam l'chaveira. They're about how to treat other people. And he goes on to explain, Rabbi Rucham, in source number 4. Nora umafhil ma'od liponein badvarim, in the underline, halo b'shelat mishpat omdim. Here we're about judgment. We're punishing somebody for stealing. And kavod abrios comes here. Is this possible? Is this mishpat? Is this what we're talking about? And therefore, second paragraph, he says in 4, Mishpatei Hashem emet. The judgment of Hashem is truth. Mishpat hino emet b'tachlit b'li kol vitur klal. And there's no give in this. This is emes. And nevertheless, sadku yachtav. With emet comes tzedek, comes righteousness, comes the ability to feel the pain of the person being judged. And this is the ABCs of Yiddishkeit in source 6, that mishpat is a rugbo kol staka v'chesed. Over hu a mishpat derech kol ha'chesed harachami v'astaka. V'lulei gadlo shochet hayu kimat menakim oto legamrei. What he's saying here is very powerful. The Ribbono Shel Olam takes into consideration in ways that we don't understand and that we're not privy to, all that goes into every single act we do. So if this thief, the lock is a little bit more difficult than he expected, and he's having heart palpitations that someone may find him, that goes into Hashem's judgment of this thief. Everything that goes into all of our actions. You see, the Western world is about bottom line. You're a lawyer, you know what I'm talking about. It's where it's at. Yiddishkeit is about what are the mindsets? What's all the emotional aspect? We can't do that down here in the court of law. This is something that Ribbono Shel Olam takes into consideration. Now, watch what he says here, because this is the punchline. If we understand that Hashem takes into consideration all of these aspects, the fact that we're still punished shows us how severe our sin is. B'diuk. Because really, all that goes into it should just knock off the sin completely, which gives us a sense. That's why I say in the simplicity comes depth. I don't want to talk about you because everyone who comes on Tuesday morning is holy. To lock out time every week, you're on a different level. I'll talk about me. Okay, so I sinned. I'm not proud of it, but life goes on. We have a very flippant view sometimes, not always, of what sin is. If we were to understand the enormity of sin, if we would understand the enormity of a relationship with Ribbono Shel Olam, how could we sin? Imagine giving your child a stick to play with, and they take the stick and they beat you with it. A chutzpah. Hashem gives us a mouth, and we use it for lashon hara against His own children. That's not a chutzpah. The one who understood this was Avram Avinu, source 7. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to, same page on left-hand side, when Avram Avinu HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to destroy a stone, he said, can I conceal this from Avram Avinu? Ki yedativ leman asher yitzaved banav ve'beito acharav. What do I know about Avram Avinu? That he's going to command his household after him, Vishamru derech Hashem lasot staka u'mishpat. This is what he knew was the greatness of Avram Avinu. He understood that there's staka u'mishpat. Because you would think about this conversation that Ribbono Shel Olam has with Avram Avinu. Avram Avinu says, okay, 45 people in the city, 30 people, 20 people, 10 people. This is stone. All right, this is the height of depravity. You're arguing if there's 10 tzaddikim that should save a whole city? That makes no sense in our mind. staka umishpat. And indeed, this is the pasuk in Tehillim 8. Sadiq Hashem b'chol drachav, v'chasid b'chol ma'asav. There's a combination of both. I flipped the page. You know where this comes to the fore? In a beautiful idea Reb Chaim Shmulevitz speaks about in Sichos Musar. There are two psukim, Sitkatcha keharurei kel, describing Tzedek like the highest of mountains, Mishpatecha tehom rabbah. Your judgment is in the deepest of the depth. Well, is it in the highest of the high or the deepest of the depth? And the obvious Jewish answer is both. Good. What's pshat here? So he says, and this is something for us to keep in mind, wherever Hashem judges a person, in that very same place and context, he looks at the person's goodness. And the classic example he brings is of Miriam HaNeviah. She's punished with Sarat, and she's quarantined for a week. Klal Yisrael, the Anan, does not move for the entire week. Why? We're in the bracket in 7. At 11. Did I say 7? 7-11. You know that. In 11. V'omnam hayaz eschara al shehimtina leMoshe keshaya b'teva sha'a achas. She stood by the Nile and waited for her brother for an hour. A sha'a achas means a short time. Hashem says, you can't move, but no one else is going to move as a reward for what you did so many years earlier. Do you see here the beauty and the complexity of what we're speaking about? Yes, there's judgment. Yes, there is a fallout for what we do. And at the same time, this judgment is mitigated by a tremendous amount of kindness. Yes, ma'am.
So it's an ongoing debate in secular jurisprudence as well. How much do we excuse somebody's deeds because they grew up in an abusive home where their mother was a drug addict versus, you did something that needs punishment, the person you stole from needs restitution. And it's a further debate as to the purpose of imprisonment.
Good.
To get them off the street, or is it rehabilitation?
Right. So again, just to repeat this, you have this in the judgment system today. If a person was brought up in a very in a home of abuse or poverty, v'chule, how much do we take that into consideration for what they've done? Like, obviously you can't exonerate it. At the same time, to what extent does that come into the picture? And what is the prison system about? Is it just to keep them off the streets, or is it to really make them into, members of our society? Yeah.
I'm not sure that those are comparable to what's being talked about here, because what's being talked about here, it seems to me, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the goodness within the person.
Good.
This is something different than growing up in an abusive home and how do you respond.
Right. So can we compare the two? One is there are environmental effects, and the other is the way the Rebbeinu Shalom sees within us all the inner dynamics and who we are. So, what do you say?
But it's said in the course that Hashem also takes that into consideration.
Hashem takes everything into consideration.
So that's not exactly 100% a different consideration.
Well, it's part of the larger picture of all the factors. Yeah, okay, good. For sure. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol niyeh.
Amen.
Let's continue with Lamanu, source 12. Shekol Adam. The bottom line is, every person, Gam Shafel Murkam Migufin Mishama, Shichelek Eloka Mimal, V'gam Betok Tocho Shel Oto Adam, Nevakim Kochod HaChomer and Kochod HaRuach. Let's go into the psyche of this thief. So I look at him and I say, you're a thief. Stop. Let's look deeper into this individual. And it doesn't have to be a thief. It could be any sin. Yeah, we're using a thief as our model here, but clearly it's anything that someone does wrong. Within this person is not just a physical body. There's also a soul that there is an ongoing fight, a fight is the wrong word, an ongoing struggle between the ruach and the neshama, where deep within inside a person, there are these feelings of shame, of embarrassment, of guilt, and they all form to the essence of this person. And therefore, when they steal, they're stealing, it's not 100%. There's part of them that really feels what? They feel bad. You know, they tell a story, I don't remember the story, but a thief comes into a home and sees there's absolutely nothing there, opens the refrigerator and there's no food, and he leaves 100 shekels. So, you know, even these thieves have what? Yeah.
I think that no matter what happens, even when we feel somebody got what they deserved, that little part of us has to remember at the Seder, when you did dumb stuff.
Yes, right.
And if we remember that, doesn't mean we side and say, oh, it means we just remember that other side.
Right, the taking out of the wine at the Seder just keeps us in check in everything we do. Yeah.
Also, if she brought up the Seder,
The four sons was also, right, right. You know, the very famous word, I don't want to get off track here, but at the same time I will make mention for a moment the Belzer Rebbe of the Russia, Haket et Shinav, knock out his teeth. So that seems to be a little bit intense, yeah. You know, they say that orthodontist, you know, wrote this to, no. So the Belzer Rebbe says, Haket Shinav means knock out the shin in the word Russia. Because within the Ra is the letter Shin, which is three-pronged, the way we write it, right? The Shin has three-pronged, which represents the Avos. And when we recognize that even the Russia has within them this goodness, if you're able to focus in and teach the Russia, the Shin in them, that will undo the Ra that's just surrounding them, the outer letters, but not the core of who they are. Yes, ma'am?
I was wondering if these klalim hold for non-Jews as well as for Jews. Do we give them that benefit?
So that's an excellent question. Do we give the non-Jews the same benefit of the doubt as the Jews? Yeah.
I would say sure, because Abraham's arguing on behalf of Stone.
Avram's arguing on behalf of Stone. At the same time, we are dealing here with Jewish court of law, and that's where I'm beginning and ending, and your question is a great question. And Ribono Shel Olam is an all-encompassing, benevolent God. Yes, ma'am, and then I'm going on.
So one thing, a couple things, is, first of all, we're talking now about theft, okay, so that can't be compared to something like murder. And also, one thing that I'm not hearing here is at all from the perspective of the victim of the crime.
Right, good. You're raising an excellent question. Where is the victim in this whole story here? We're just talking about the thief. Like the poor guy lost his sheep. At the same time, the victim is compensated by what? 4 times the amount. So the Torah does very much take into consideration the victim in terms of getting paid not only what you lost, but 4 or 5 times more. So I'm not so worried about the victim. I'm more worried about the thief. Yeah, that's where we're focused today. Okay, let's focus a little bit, focused on the focusing, and that would be helpful to focus. Source 13. Says Rav Rivlin in Sefer Parshios, it could very well be if Shira, I'm in the squiggly underline, shloit bazeh klal. You know, we're assuming here that this thief had bizayon. What if the thief stole at night? What if the thief couldn't care less if he slaps it on his shoulder? You know, like we're being super bending over backwards for this thief who perhaps wasn't even what? You know, doesn't even feel any level of shame or anything. to which we lead to, and this is the core idea on this for us in 14, Rav Elia Lopian and Lev Eliyahu, where he says in 14, there's hanitzot hakalus shel kavod habrios, asher adayin chavui b'shafel ruach zeh, asher nivra b'tzamo shel borei. Every human being, let's focus on Jews here, has a tselem Elokim, a divine soul that is connected to the Ribbono Shel Olam. Even if a person isn't focused on this, you should know it exists. Let's develop this in Rav Eisenberger in English, Yom HaShabbos. Let's flip to the next page. And he says in source 16, in the Sefer Lev Eliyahu of Elia Lopian Zatzal discusses a peculiar and seemingly counterintuitive reasoning employed on behalf of the thief. Kadosh Baruch Hu's factoring in the embarrassment experienced by the thief when it's clear that the thief, as evidenced by his own shameless actions, experienced no embarrassment at all. Actions speak louder than words. And this thief made a conscious and calculated decision to steal a lamb. He was pulling the wool over our eyes. No, that's not his job. Yet he was undeterred, providing us with a reliable indicator his actions didn't cause so much as a cursory blush. Wasn't even sheepish about it. Rav Elia explains that this method of accounting employed by Kadosh Baruch Hu is very different than our own. Hashem takes into account the entirety of the person before meting out punishment. And that's the operative line, the entirety of the person, considering both the physical component and the spiritual component. He looks into a person's soul, privy to things no human can observe, and makes an accounting. I just want us to pause for a moment here. I personally find this very comforting because there's a lot more that goes into what we do than what meets the eye. And sometimes we mess up and we feel bad we mess up. And the person, the victim in this case, right, will say, like, how could you have done that? If you would only know what was going on in my head, if you would only know, there's so much that you don't know. That doesn't excuse it. There's punishment, there's din, there's judgment. And at the same time, Ribbono Shel Olam takes it into consideration. Are you with me here? Like, do you feel that there is being held? Yes.
I just want to say that the victim is a very big part of this as well, because the victim has to have that same compassion.
Correct.
For what's injured.
Yes.
And they have to use all the resources to be able to
Right.
respond in a way that's compassionate.
I like what you're saying. The victim also has to be in this place of, I was hurt and I need to get compensation, v'chulei, and at the same time to open themselves up to, there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. Right. Yes, exactly.
Because we have no way of really doing that.
Right. The Ribbono Shel Olam is bochein leiv v'klayos. He understands what's inside of us, and that's all of Yontif, 100%. Yeah.
One of the things that's bothering me is.
Only one thing? That's pretty good. Oh, I'm doing well today.
Is that we don't, it's written in the Torah, black and white, meaning it's, this is the law. And it doesn't take into consideration the message that it's giving to the tzibur, meaning to the Am, like, oh, maybe it's not so bad, 4 as opposed to 5. There's a kind of condonement, like, what happened to, like, the responsibility to the community, OUisrael, meaning it's a statement. This is, Hashem has compassion. Maybe, I pay my 4th, I'm finished. Kilo. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying to understand. Does my face look like I'm not really understanding? Is it written all over me?
It's giving a message, it's condoning the Avera,
It's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's not so bad. I could hear how you could say that, and at the same time,
If you're gonna steal something, steal a sheep, don't steal
Yeah, I don't think that's the message. I can hear how you could hear that that's the message. I don't think that's the message. I don't think that's the message. I think the message is you have to pay 4 times. That's a lot. That's 4 times. Generally, if I steal something, you only pay double. I'm paying 4 times. That's a lot. And at the same time, that's the best I'm going to do. I'm going to take one more comment and then I'm focusing. Yeah.
So Hashem comes to Adam and he comes to Cain
Uh-huh.
and he comes to various kings and he says, what's going on? What happened? What
Right.
are you doing?
Good.
Hashem knows perfectly well what people are doing.
Right. He's coming for us to ask us.
Right. He's being extremely respectful.
Right. Right.
And he's giving us a chance
To do tshuva, to own up to it, 100%, and that's that balance. I'm still processing your question. I gotta process it. I'm working on it.
Because if you could see it in other situations, like a lot of times, the whole question of taking someone off the street isn't only to take them off the street so they personally don't do damage. It's also a message. It's a social education. It's a social. That's what I'm trying to say. Like there's the individuals involved, and then there's tzibur.
Let's hold it. Let's move on here. In this case, the thief himself will be distant from his own soul. Asterisk and 16. Not perceiving its existence, unaware of its constant presence. Yet Hashem sees, he sees the paralyzing shame endured by the thief's soul as it carried the lamb through the street. Hashem can feel the disgrace and degradation it felt. The person, Guf, may not have felt the shame. At the same time, the soul feels the shame. And that's the operative idea here. That we sometimes, in our own selves, don't even realize what we're feeling, but our souls, our neshamas do. And that's what it means Ribbon Shalom takes everything into consideration. And that's why he says, I'm moving to 18 here, no sin is ever committed with the consent of the entire person. In other words, it's impossible for one to ever be fully invested in a sin. The neshama is always being dragged along against its will, despite its protests. Rav Yitzchak Blazer was known to say, we're going to come back to this at the end, when one sins with a groan in heaven, they make sure to record that it was done with a groan. And when one sins confidently and without regret, they write that the sin was committed without a groan. The difference and distance between these two, in terms of punishment, is shamayim va'aretz. It's accurate to say that every sin committed by a Jew is done with a groan, the groan of the neshama. The neshama is unwillingly dragged along, kicking and screaming to every sin. And this, let's take this a little bit further, my friends. In the end of 19, Mishpatei Hashem emet tzadku yachtav. The judgments of Hashem are true, altogether just. Rabbunim offers the following insight into this pasuk. When determining proper judgment, Hashem takes everything into account together. What does yachtav mean? 3 things. 1, it's referring to both the guf and the neshama. Hashem calculates the pain caused to the neshama by the guf's actions, and we ourselves may what? Not even be aware of it. 2, he also takes into account the pain caused to the sinner's family, as their pain is a direct result of the sin. The pain and embarrassment felt by the sinner's father and mother, by his grandparents and siblings, are also included in Hashem's calculation. Now watch this. This is gewaltig. Last, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes into account his own immense pain. We are all a chelek Elokah mimal. Hashem exists within each and every one of us. And when we sin, that divine spark experiences a deep form of pain and agony. Hashem is a victim of our sin as well. Wow. We aren't even what? Aware of this. This is just the depth and complexity of what we're speaking about here. And therefore, my friends, I'm missing a page. Do you have the next page? How did I not get it?
It's on the back.
Oh, you're right, it is on the back. I'm glad someone has intelligence here because I'm not doing so well here. Thank you very much. One of the major lessons of this week's Parsha is to try and emulate Hashem's ways of judging people, to look beyond the physical, to understand there's a holy flickering light inside the sinner, one that is never extinguished and remains pure no matter the circumstances. And that's what was mentioned in the back there, that we as the victim have to just have a little bit more leeway in understanding that we don't understand. You know, instead of just flying off the handle, how could you have done this? Whoa. There's a lot more complexity that exists in our interpersonal relationships, which then brings us to upshot number 1 of this discussion today, and that is kavod habrios. What we learn from the Ribono Shel Olam, who treats this thief differently, is the message for us, how we need to look at people in a havedana kol hadam l'kaf. Let's look at the entirety of a person, what kavod habrios is about. 24. Really, we're going to have rachmanis on this thief? Yes, because this thief has a chelek elokah mimal. It has a godly soul in them. And we have an obligation of chiyuv, of kavod habrios. You see, we're coming up to Shira soon. Rabbi Akiva students on their level were held responsible. Shalom nagu kavod zeh b'zeh. And he says here in the arrow, and this is intense, that one of the questions that is asked to a person after 120 years is himlachta et chavercha b'nachat ruach. Did you make your friend king with a good feeling? Like, how did you treat the person near you? Right? The classic example that's given is you have a joke and you're in the middle of telling the joke and somebody who already knows the punchline says what? Let me tell you the punchline. Could you just be quiet for a few minutes and give them the pleasure of what? I'm saying the punchline. Another example. You hear good news. Someone gets married, engaged, child, whatever the news is. And it's really good news. And then somebody else comes over to you and says, did you hear? And you say, yeah, I heard. What did they want to do? They wanted to share it with you. They thought about sharing with you. Why do they want to share it with you? Not just that you should know the information. Why are they really sharing it with you? To have the pleasure of seeing your joy in receiving the news. By saying, oh, I heard it already. What have you just done? You've just taken away that himulachta chavercha b'nachat ruach, to make a person feel good. Yeah.
I have a problem with that, like witnessing. I feel like it's Kameva's does. I know it already, so I'm gonna lie really by telling them I don't.
You know what? I'm not impressed. That's Kneva stuff. I hear it. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. You don't have to say, I didn't hear it. You can just say, what? Wow, that's great news. Is it any less of a great news? Right? So if you're really careful about what you say, don't say, what? I didn't hear. So just say, tell me. And then it's like, they go, I really. Yes.
I was thinking about the contagion of joy. And let the joy be unleashed.
Yes, that's it. Let the joy be unleashed.
It's as if you're hearing it for the first
Yeah.
It just hits me that it says in Tehillim, Emet me'eretz titzmach.
Right.
It said that Mishamayim nishkaf, meaning that people tend to emphasize
The-
the truth and
the truth, and we have to work a little bit on the tzedek, yeah.
Okay, so where I'm from, because of my field, is I'm okay with it when it comes to theft. But when it comes to more heinous crimes, I find
Yeah, okay. I hear you. 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 And at the same time, I tell you that the human condition is complex. And I'm not getting people off the hook. There's punishment. And at the same time, human beings are complex. And I am going to ask everybody a favor that we're holding questions until the end. Can we hold the questions and comments to the end? And that way, there's hope that I'll get to the end. Let's just talk about this idea of kavod abrios. I want to talk about it for a few minutes because I think that this is the upshot that I want us to walk away with for life. 24. Now that I just told everyone to hold their comments, and I'm not being sensitive to people's needs to share. No, here we go. Kol adam zakuk laharacha, 24. The second 24 on the bottom. Rav Wolbe speaks about every person needs to be recognized. V'chayav tluyim ba, and their life depends on it. The Saba Slobodka said, Zatzal, Ki adam eino yachol lichyot bli kavod. We can't live without honor. V'lu yitzuyar shikhu mimeno et kol kavodo yamut. If you take away someone's entire honor, they're going to die. And this is really the Holocaust. When you make people into numbers and not people, you take away their dignity, you take away their selves. And this is Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, being able to find that I have this inner sense of self, inner sense of worth. This kavod, says Rav Wolbe in 25, in the asterisk, he hanagah chitzonit hamechuyeva ma'metziut shel kedusha pnimit u'matimala. When I recognize the inner kedusha that a person has, then it forces me to behave in an appropriate way. You know, I just had this personally last week. As part of my job in teaching in seminary, I meet with girls. And I met with a girl last week who has tremendous social anxiety. Like, she didn't look me in the eye the entire half hour. Very shy, very, are you getting the picture? And it was a painful conversation on my part because it wasn't a conversation. I don't know what it was. So I was trying to draw out from her. Like, she's like a fly in the wall in class. Very few friends. You know, like, some people just go through life a little bit invisible, and that is painful beyond words. So I was trying to draw out from her. Does she have any talents, anything she enjoys? So she told me she likes drawing cartoons. So I said to her, do me a favor. The next time we have class, bring me, I'd like to see what you drew. Yesterday was the first time she was in a class of mine. And when I took attendance, I said to her, we'll call her Sarah, that's not her name. I said, Sarah, did you remember the cartoons? Her whole face lit up. She said, yes, I have it with me. People need to be seen. People need to be appreciated. All of us. You know, every single one sitting here, in whatever community you're from, and we're a cross-range community here, knows of people who either knock at their door or sit in front of the makolet asking for money. Do any of you know what I'm talking about? Do you all have somebody in your mind's eye? Do you know their name? Do you know anything about them? Someone was telling me when I taught this on Sunday, she was telling me that they had, when she was growing up, there was a person who sold shoelaces for $1. Now this person is in her 70s, so growing up, we're going back. She says you could get 3 pairs of shoelaces for $1. $1 was a lot of money. But people would buy shoelaces from this person because she said, my mother went over to him, who could not even afford $1, for the shoelaces, so you're getting a picture, and says to him, "Do you own a winter coat?" Said, "My mother was a seamstress, so she knew about what size he was and found somebody to give him a winter coat." It's not about the shoelaces. It's about the people. It's about treating people with the kedusha that they have inherently within them. And it's fascinating. Rav Wolbe speaks about in 26, Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua says, "Yehi kavod talmidcha chaviv alecha kishocha." The honor of your student should be beloved to you like your own honor. The honor of your friend like the Mora Rabcha, the way you have awe of your Rebbe. And the awe of your Rebbe should be like Mora Shamayim, the fear of heaven. So he notes that each one is a higher level, the student like yourself, your friend like a Rebbe like Mora Shamayim. Why is it always one notch higher? He says, because it's so hard to get it right. So that if you go aim a little bit higher, so then maybe what? You'll hit it right. And he notes here, I'm doing this outside in 27, What's so hard about kavod abrios is that while you have kibbud avayim and you have kavod for a spouse, a rebbe, you don't have really any positive mitzvos of kavod in the Torah. You have a lot of what you shouldn't do, right? Don't embarrass somebody, don't call them a nickname, don't nas devarim, but you don't have kum va'aseh. Rav Wolbe says, why? Because it's so hard to really honor a person. Every person has to know themselves and to look at that person, and it's a formation, it's a creation. When I look at this person, how can you be able to honor them? I'm not telling you what to do. I want you to what? I want you to figure it out yourself. Because when you figure it out, you're going to tap into the inherent kavod that somebody has. And he brings down here from Yerucham in 28 about writing letters. Now, writing letters is it's a lost art. That's the best words I was looking for. Thank you. It's a lost art. At the same time, some of the ideas that he brings here are very relevant for our lives and our form of communication. When you write, are you thinking about yourself or about the other person? What do I mean by that? I'll tell you. Do I say in my email or text or whatever, or voice note, how are you feeling today? I miss seeing you today. I'm focused on where the person is at. The example, which is a classic example, is you take somebody out for lunch for their birthday. What restaurant do you go to? The Chinese restaurant because you like Chinese. It's irrelevant if they like it or not. Or you go where they like. Is your own focus about yourself or about them? And he says that just like there's a zekeli vanvehu in ben adam l'makom, there's a zekeli vanvehu in ben adam l'chaveiro. So when I have a younger audience, the example that I give, and I'll still give it, is when you're writing a note to your child's teacher or rebbe, so often you pull out from your pocketbook an old receipt or bank. Do you know what I'm talking about? Any of you ever know what I'm talking about here? And you just scribble it out and then you flip it over and you write. Yeah, it's horrible. I agree. You write a note to somebody, you have a pad that's just. And I'll add, what's really classic in writing or in speech is mention the person's name, because that's the most beloved thing to them. An example of kavod habrios that the Mesilas Yesharim gives in 29, based on the Darchei Musar, is in Lama Amrad Torah Lashir Peah Mina Kama Vani Yavo V'Yiksor. It's in the mitzvah of Peah. The mitzvah of Peah is you leave a corner of your field and the poor people come to take it. So wouldn't it be easier? You already have a staff. Let them cut down the wheat. Let them pick all the apples, and then you make a pile and let them come and take it. You're making them schlep to the field and take it themselves. I mean, that's double the amount of work. Wrong. This ani, this poor person, doesn't have a field of his own. And he feels bad. By him going into a field and having to cut the wheat and pick the fruit himself, for a few moments he feels like a what? Like a balabas. He feels great about himself. What does it take for us to make somebody feel what? Good. That's what it's about. That's what Yiddishkeit is about. How can I restore honor and dignity to people? Because this is what is missing from most of our lives. And this is what people crave more than anything. Rav Freifeld says that he lived this in 34. He says, a person that has saras ayin looks at another person through a crack, through a keyhole. He has a very narrow view of the other person, a very constricted view. He sees only one aspect of the person. Every person has many aspects, innumerable aspects. It's impossible to give a person completeness if you do not see the complete person. So the Mishnah says in Avos to Rabbi Natan that if you give another person all the gifts in the world, but do it with a sour face, it's as if you did nothing. Do you know why? Listen to this line. Walk home with it. Because you didn't give it to the person, you gave it to a need. And the need is not the person. It's simply something that he lacks. The person, the real person, is a composite of all the aspects of the person. If you give him a warm shamalachem, if you address the essence of a person, that's worth more than all the gifts in the world. There's a Hasidic statement, if only we would love the biggest tzaddik as much as the Almighty loves the biggest Russia. What does this mean? The Almighty loves bad people? Of course not. It means the Almighty sees with an ayin tov, a good eye. He sees the whole person. When we see someone as a Russia, the Almighty sees all the aspects of a person. His fine midos, his kindness, his good quality. The Almighty does not look at people through a crack. He looks at them in their totality. And that's the message that we're trying to get across today. There's so much that's found in a person, and sometimes those aspects of a person, the person themselves, is not even aware of. It's a nefesh, it's a nefesh, it's the guf. And even when people do terrible things, there's still goodness in the person. I'm talking about you and me. Do you know what I mean by that? I'm not talking about abusive people. I'm glad you think no one here is abusive. That was very good. Impressed. Kavod. Honor. Kavod habrios. That's what Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai is talking about. Kavod habrios is what we need to live in the way I look at another person, in the way I treat another person. Hold the door open for somebody. Look behind you when you go through the door. You know, that's my favorite line. See that there are other people out there in this world. Rav Lugasi, a little Sephardi Torah here, 36. V'nei ro'im anu etzel b'nei adam shakavod hu rosh rishon l'maviyav chayehem. Kavod is a spiritual part of us, is one of the strongest motivators in a person. People will do things or not do things because of their what? Their kavod. Their honor and their dignity means a tremendous amount. Kach double squiggly shakavod hu hayakar biyoter etzel b'nei adam. וכמו שכן רואים אנו בני אדם פורשים ממעשים המוכרים ומתאוות ורצונות רק מפני שלא יתחלות כבודם. They don't want to impinge on their honor. They don't do certain things. And if you see how great honor is, we understand that bizayon, When you make light of somebody, kavod comes from the word kaved. It's heavy, it's intense. Light, kal, kalil, klala is a curse. The worst thing you can do to somebody is to impinge on that honor. And we all know this. If someone makes a comment to you that's not such a nice comment, we're in a bad mood all day. Why? Because somebody upset our honor. You know, I'll tell you a Maisa Shahaya that a friend of mine told me, also in the publishing business, and used a mom and pop publisher. Do you know what a mom and pop publisher is? Yeah, a small publisher. So they said they were going over the acknowledgments with the publisher. And they had a line, thank you for so-and-so for working on the cover. And then a few paragraphs down, thank you to this publisher for printing the book. And this publisher said, did you see what you just wrote? And they said, what's wrong? You used the same words to thank the person who did the cover as you did to thank me for publishing the book. And I worked much harder. Do you see how sensitive we need to be to people's honor? That the same word thank you can't be used? This is what we're talking about here. This is the message to walk away with here. Thief, no thief. Let's learn the message for us. The Ribono Shel Olam takes into consideration there's a human being here. Are we able to see the person behind the outer guise? We're able to see the neshama that's imprisoned within the person, that's struggling to come out. We are so judgmental. That's Nakuda number 1 for today. Nakuda number 2, I'm gonna, a second upshot from this Rashi, and then we're gonna add one final idea. So the first upshot is Ribono Shel Olam. The idea for today is Ribono Shel Olam takes everything into consideration. Upshot number 1 for our lives is kavod habrios, how we treat people. Upshot number 2 is what we may mention before that I want to focus on just for a minute now, is that when we do, leave the thief aside, when we do a mitzvah or an aveira, the Ribono Shel Olam takes into consideration all that went into that mitzvah and an aveira. And this is what we had seen before, that you do an aveira and you go, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just did that. It's different than you don't say that. And it doesn't even hit the radar. As the Rav Hamaner Zatzal, Mei Adas points out in 41, we say on Yom Kippur, Al Chet Shechatanu Lefanecha, and the squiggly, Be'ones u'beratzon. Be'ones, forced, beratzon, willingly. And that's the difference. Force means I know I did it, but I feel bad that I did it. Difference then, oh, who cares I did it, so I'll do another sin. So recognize this. We goof. You know, let's be real here. You ever been in a situation where you hear Lashon Hara or you say Lashon Hara, or you heard Lashon Hara you want to say over? Let's use that example. And you say, I shouldn't say it, I should say it, I shouldn't say it, I should say it, I should, back and forth. And then you can't hold it back. It's just too good. So you say it. That's not the same as just what? Just saying it. And the flip side is in mitzvah observance. Nos b'sils b'vavam. Im ba'al aveira 43 zocher lahanacha ma'onsho mitoch hitchashvut b'vizyono shafil lo sam libo alehem. If this guy is going to have it a little bit easier and he's not even paying attention to these vizyonos, al achas kam v'kama, how much more so b'mida tova meruba, how much more so in good things. That a person is osek b'avodat Hashem and it comes with difficulty. how much more so one is going to be rewarded. That Ribono Shalom takes into consideration kol regesh kal, the kol shikatan hu mavi b'cheshbon. You come to a shiur on Tuesday morning and you miss your bus. And you say, oh, I missed my bus. Ugh, I'm going to have to take another bus. I'm going to have to wait. Should I go? Should I not? And you come. Oh my gosh, do you know what reward you get for all of that effort? We don't even recognize this. This is the greatness, right? It's difficult. It's hard. I'm going to work at it. This mitzvah's not easy for me. I'm going to make an effort. I want us to walk away with today, the Ribono Shalom takes all of this into account. We shouldn't feel like all of my efforts are wasted. No, we're starting to learn at a later age in life and we've never learned before. And it's hard and it's challenging and I have to pay, double amount of attention and focus. It's all rewarded. So that's the message for today, and then I'm just going to add one nakuda. The message is Hashem has mercy on us. And Hashem has mercy on all of us that we aren't even privy to knowing what are those different parts of us. The nefesh, the guf. Hashem takes into consideration the pain of our nefesh. He takes into consideration those around us. And he takes into consideration his own humiliation when we sin. Upshot number 1, kavod habrios. Treat people with honor. See the good in people. Bring out the good. Don't respond to the need. Get to know the person. 2, know that all the effort, whether it's the Aveira or the mitzvah, all of the krets and Hashem takes into account. Now I want to flip this around in a different way. 45, Ashir Vashevach. There is a Gemara that says, I'm in Gemara Psachim in the squiggly, Hodul Hashem kitov, Hodul Hashem shegovar chovato shel adam v'tovato. One of the things that Hashem sometimes does is he punishes a person through a physical aspect that they have rather than punishing the person themselves. And the Gemara gives us an example. A rich person is affected by his ox, a poor person is affected by his sheep, and then the almana is affected by her tarnagolet. Every person on their socioeconomic level. So he says the following. You see here that a poor person, their socioeconomic level is a sheep. When a person steals 9 3/4 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, it's because the person is what? Poor. I get it if you steal a sheep, because that's what you would want. Here goes. Hello, however, if he steals a sheep, according to his level, even though it's a terrible aveira, you pay 4 times. Ulam im ganav shor. If this ani has the chutzpah to then steal an ox, halo avano gadol yoter, his punishment's even greater. He should have been satisfied with a sheep, which is his level. Umara aligno yoter merkelo, a chutzpah, to now steal something that's what? Above your socioeconomic level. So therefore, I'm punishing him by what? Having to pay now 5 times the amount and not 4 times. And that's the complexity of what we're understanding here, is that the Ribono Shalom takes everything into consideration. You're a poor person, steal the sheep. Now you're going for the ox? That's a chutzpah. And I'm going to punish you with even what? Don't have your eyes set on something that's what? Beyond where you're at. Now I'll take questions.
The opposite is also true, that there's a principle that you give tzedakah according to the person's.
Right, you give it according to the person's need when you give tzedakah. Good, yeah.
He said that cover of reels. There are many times when people say good things about you. So, number 1, it gives you a goal to strive
Good.
to actualize what they say. And number 2, if somebody hurts you, somebody embarrasses you, you fall back on that feeling of cover and it doesn't bother you.
Right, if you have that strength of kavod, it won't bother you. Let me just end with the story.
Confidence?
And confidence, yeah. Let me just end with a story, and then we'll call it a day. When the boys were in Shanghai, in Mir, there were very few weddings there, even though there were 400 boys. And they would when they had a wedding, they would praise the boys to the ceiling. He has the mind of the Shagas Aryeh and the understanding and the depth, and went to town. So they went to the Rosh Yeshiva or the Mashgiach, and they said, talking about MS, this is lying. This boy does not have the brain of the Shagas Aryeh or the understanding or the. We should abolish this custom. And he said, absolutely not. And we're going back now to 1930s, 1940s. He said, it's so rare for us to hear one boy compliment another boy. And this is the most beautiful music to my ears, to be able to hear one person complimenting another. We are keeping this minhag. And that's something we need to really work on in our lives, complimenting, building people up.
That's why it says, "Kala na'ava chassidam."
Right, right.